First contact shock. The Grand Nexus station hung in the void between stars like a glittering jewel, its 100-kilometer span housing representatives from over 3,000 species across the galaxy. The Galactic Confederation had stood for over 12,000 years, a testament to cooperation among the stars. In all that time, they had developed one rule that superseded all others: extreme caution when dealing with Deathworlders. High Counselor Vexala, a floating assemblage of crystalline structures connected by shimmering energy fields, hovered nervously at the head of the Grand Council chamber. The chamber buzzed with anxiety, thousands of diverse beings murmuring in languages that the universal translators struggled to keep up with. "Order, please." Vexala's harmonious voice resonated through the chamber. "The delegation from Sol 3 will arrive momentarily. I remind all representatives that these beings evolved on a Class 12 death world. The containment protocols are in place for your safety." Ambassador Trilnock, a small amphibian creature with delicate membranes and 6 eyes, raised a webbed appendage. "High Counselor, remind us again why we're allowing Deathworlders into the Confederation." The risk assessment indicates they could survive vacuum exposure for nearly 2 minutes. Vexala's crystals pulsed with the equivalent of a sigh. "The Exploratory Committee has determined that Sol 3, or Earth as they call it, possesses unique resources and strategic importance. Furthermore, their technological development rate is concerning. Better to bring them into the fold than risk antagonizing them." A collective shudder passed through the assembly. "Their biology alone is terrifying," offered Science Minister Kloop, a gelatinous being whose translucent body revealed complex organs. "They possess an endoskeleton of calcium, actual metal inside their bodies, and their cells include mitochondria, which were once separate organisms before being absorbed. They're essentially walking symbiotic collectives. And don't forget their companion species," added Security Director Zarn, an insectoid whose carapace gleamed under the chamber lights. "These Luparians are quadrupedal predators they've genetically modified from their planet's apex hunters, what they call wolves. Their genetic manipulation capabilities are disturbing." The chamber doors slid open with a hiss, cutting all conversation short. 2 security drones hovered in first, followed by the most intimidating beings many counselors had ever seen. The human walked upright on 2 powerful limbs, standing nearly twice the height of the average Confederation species. It wore a formal blue uniform that did nothing to disguise the dense musculature beneath. Its skin was a rich brown, and it moved with fluid grace that seemed impossible for a creature of such size and density. Walking beside it was the Luparian, a silver-furred quadruped with intelligent eyes and a modified uniform vest containing various technological interfaces. Its movement was predatory, muscles rippling beneath the fur with each step. Most disturbing was its mouth. When it briefly opened to pant in the station's atmosphere, rows of sharp teeth gleamed. Most shocking of all, neither wore environmental suits or breathing apparatus. They were directly exposed to the station's standard atmosphere, which was toxic to most Deathworld species. Representatives of the Galactic Confederation, announced the human in a deep voice that carried effortlessly across the chamber. "I am Ambassador Maya Chen of Earth. This is Ambassador Argent of the United Luparian Nations. We bring greetings and hopes for peaceful cooperation." The Luparian made a rumbling sound that the translators rendered as, "We come in peace and friendship, representatives of the stars." High Counselor Vexala's crystalline form flickered in what her species recognized as extreme stress. "We welcome you to the Grand Nexus Station. But I must inquire. Our atmosphere contains elements potentially fatal to carbon-based life from high-gravity worlds. Your lack of protective equipment is concerning." Ambassador Chen smiled, revealing flat teeth with sharp canines at the edges, an evolutionary remnant of their predator past that caused several delegates to flinch. "Thank you for your concern, High Counselor. We've analyzed your atmosphere and found it merely uncomfortable, not lethal. Humans and Luparians are highly adaptable." "Merely uncomfortable," whispered Ambassador Trilnock to a neighboring delegate. The oxygen content alone would cause most species to spontaneously combust. Please, take your designated positions. Vexilla indicated 2 reinforced platforms designed specifically for the Earth delegation. The platforms were surrounded by nearly invisible containment fields, a precaution the Confederation had deemed necessary. As the formal introductions proceeded, Science Minister Kloop approached the podium. "If I may, I would like to verify some information about your homeworld for our records." Ambassador Chen nodded. "Of course." Kloop's gelatinous form quivered slightly as he brought up a holographic display. "Our probes indicate Sol 3. Earth experiences temperature variations from approximately -60 to +50 degrees on your Celsius scale. Is this accurate?" "Yes, though inhabited regions typically range from -30 to +45. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Most Confederation species required temperature variances of less than 5 degrees for comfort, and gravity at 9.8 meters per second squared. Correct. Slightly higher at the poles, slightly lower at the equator due to centrifugal forces. Kloop continued, surface water covering 70% of the planet. Frequent tectonic activity. Atmospheric storms releasing electrical discharges. Yes to all. Ambassador Chen replied calmly. Though we call those earthquakes and thunderstorms, they're quite normal on Earth. Normal, echoed Kloop, his transparent body visibly paling. And one final confirmation. Your species consumes other life forms for sustenance, both plant and animal matter. At this, several delegates shuffled uncomfortably. Most Confederation species relied on photosynthesis or chemical energy conversion. Yes, answered Chen. Humans are omnivores. Luparians were originally carnivores, but have adapted to omnivorous diets during our long partnership. The Luparian, Argent, added through the translator. Our ancestors hunted alongside humans for thousands of years before our uplifting. We share an evolutionary bond of cooperation. Security Director Zarn chittered forward. And this uplifting process, you genetically modified another species to sentience. No, corrected Ambassador Chen. Wolves, Luparians' ancestors, were already highly intelligent pack animals with complex social structures. We accelerated and guided their evolution, enhancing capacities they already possessed. Our partnership was mutual, Argent added. Humans provided genetic advancement. We provided loyalty and protection. Now we stand as equals. High Counselor Vexilla intervened before more uncomfortable questions could be asked. Perhaps we should proceed to the formal application review. Ambassador Chen, the Confederation has several concerns about Earth's admission. Your species has a documented history of internal warfare. Your technological development has been extraordinarily rapid, and your biological capabilities are formidable. Ambassador Chen stood entirely still, a posture that somehow conveyed more strength than any movement could have. Counselor, I understand your concerns. Humanity has indeed fought wars amongst ourselves. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've learned from them. Our partnership with the Luparians is just one example of how we've grown beyond our violent past. We no longer hunt for survival, Argent added. We hunt for justice and truth. As for our biology, continued Chen, we simply adapted to survive our world. Earth forged us through fire and ice, through flood and drought. We don't consider our adaptability a weapon, but a gift, one we hope to share with the Confederation. Trade Minister Pelvok, a tall avian being with iridescent feathers, leaned forward. Share. What exactly do you mean, Ambassador? Earth's extreme conditions have led to unique medical and technological innovations, Chen explained. Our regenerative medicine, disaster management systems, and adaptive technologies could benefit countless species. In return, we hope to learn from the Confederation's millennia of experience. The chamber grew quieter as the delegates considered this. It was Security Director Zarn who broke the silence, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Words are easily spoken, Ambassador, but the cold fact remains. Both your species could survive on nearly 70% of Confederation worlds with minimal protection. Most of our member species would die within minutes on your world. How can we be sure your peaceful intentions won't change once you've gained access to our technology and worlds? Ambassador Chen's expression remained calm, but Argent's fur bristled slightly, a reaction the more observant delegates noted with alarm. A dramatic medieval battlefield scene under stormy, golden skies. The lone knight in shining, battle-worn armor kneels in the foreground, gripping a large sword with one hand and bracing himself with a massive round shield, emblazoned with a bold red emblem. Behind him, an organized army of similarly armored knights with spears and shields stands ready for battle among the ruins of an ancient, crumbling stone fortress. The atmosphere is tense and epic, with a feeling of imminent large-scale conflict. Highly detailed, cinematic lighting, gritty and realistic medieval fantasy style, proving their worth. The deliberations had stretched into their 10th hour when the alarms began blaring throughout the Grand Nexus station. Emergency lights pulsed in patterns that most species instinctively recognized as severe danger. Containment breach in the antimatter storage facility, announced the station's AI, its tone calibrated to convey urgency without causing panic. Radiation levels rising in sectors 17 through 24. All personnel evacuate to designated safety zones. High Counselor Vexella's crystalline form pulsed with alarm patterns. What's happening? The antimatter containment fields are supposed to have 17 redundancies. Security Director Zarn was already accessing emergency protocols through his neural interface. It appears 3 containment subsystems have failed simultaneously. The probability of this occurring naturally is negligible. Sabotage, asked Trade Minister Pelvok, feathers ruffling in distress. Unknown, chittered Zarn, but the radiation levels will reach lethal thresholds in adjacent sectors within 20 minutes. The evacuation is proceeding, but there are still 800 delegates and staff in the endangered zones. Science Minister Kloop's gelatinous form rippled anxiously. If the antimatter containment fails completely, half the station will be vaporized instantly. The council chamber doors slid open, and Ambassador Chen strode in with Argent at her side. Both appeared unnaturally calm amidst the chaos. "We've been monitoring your emergency broadcasts," Chen said without preamble. "Your radiation shielding teams can't reach the facility in time, can they?" Zarn's mandibles clicked in agitation. "This is a Confederation matter, Ambassador. Please return to your designated quarters. Your radiation shielding teams are composed of Florians and Jelani, correct?" Chen persisted. "Neither species can withstand more than 2 sieverts without permanent damage." "And your point is?" Zarn demanded. Chen and Argent exchanged a glance. "Humans can survive brief exposures up to 10 sieverts, though not without consequences. Luparians, due to their enhanced cellular regeneration, can tolerate even more." The council chamber fell silent except for the continuing alarms. "You're suggesting?" Vexella's voice trailed off. "We're volunteering," Chen said firmly. "We can reach the facility and stabilize the containment systems long enough for your teams to implement permanent repairs." "Impossible," Kloop protested. "The radiation levels are already at 4 sieverts and rising. The heat from the antimatter containment vessels exceeds 200 degrees. The access corridors are flooded with toxic coolant." Argent bared his teeth in what the council now recognized was not aggression, but a grim smile. "Tuesday on Earth, as humans would say." "We need schematics," Chen said. "All business now. And any radiation medication you can provide. Not that it will help much at these levels." Vexella hesitated for only a moment before authorizing the information transfer. "The lives of hundreds are at risk. We accept your assistance, ambassadors." What followed was a flurry of activity as station technicians provided the Earth delegates with what little protective equipment might help. The environmental suits, designed for much more fragile species, looked comically inadequate on Chen's tall frame. "These won't handle the radiation," she noted, examining the suit's specifications. "But they'll keep the coolant off us, at least." "We can't authorize this," Security Director Zarn protested one final time. "The diplomatic implications if representatives from Earth are killed during their evaluation period are not your concern," Chen cut him off. "This is our choice." As the two Deathworlders prepared to enter the contaminated sectors, Science Minister Kloop approached with something clutched in his gelatinous appendages. "This is a neural recorder," he explained, offering the small device to Chen. "It will transmit your vital signs and sensory input back to the council chamber. For scientific purposes." Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, understanding perfectly well that the Confederation wanted to observe Deathworlders in action. Nevertheless, she accepted the device and attached it to her temple. "Let's move," she told Argent, who growled in agreement. The council chamber's main display activated, splitting to show both Chen and Argent's perspectives as they moved through the station's corridors. The evacuation was still underway, panicked delegates and staff rushing past them in the opposite direction. "Radiation levels at 5.4 sieverts and rising," came the AI's calm announcement. "Their cellular structure should be breaking down already," whispered Kloop in horrified fascination as the vital sign readouts showed elevated heart rates but otherwise normal function. The two Deathworlders reached the first contamination barrier, a sealed bulkhead behind which toxic coolant had pooled. 3 meters deep, Chen observed, studying the schematics on her portable device. "We'll have to swim through. The coolant is caustic to organic tissue," warned Vexola through the communication link. "Noted," replied Chen tersely. Without hesitation, the human and Luparian sealed their helmets and plunged into the blue-green liquid. The council watched in stunned silence as the two powered through the toxic soup, their biomonitors showing pain responses, but no hesitation. "By the first light," murmured Pelvok. "They're swooning through what would dissolve our environmental suits in seconds." Emerging on the other side, Chen and Argent discarded the now smoking outer layers of their protective gear. "Radiation at 6.8 sieverts," announced the AI. "Antimatter containment at 42% and falling." The next obstacle was a maintenance shaft superheated by the failing containment systems. The thermal imaging on the neural recorders showed temperatures approaching 180 degrees Celsius. Too hot for the suits, Chen decided, stripping down to her uniform. Argent likewise shrugged out of his protective gear, his silver fur standing on end in the intense heat. "Are they insane?" exclaimed Zarn, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Their internal organs will cook." "No," corrected Kloop, studying the biomonitors with growing amazement. "Look at their core temperature regulation. They're sweating, releasing water through their skin to create evaporative cooling. And the Luparian's fur is providing insulative protection." The council watched as Chen and Argent crawled through the superheated shaft, their vitals showing extreme stress, but remaining within survivable parameters. 10 minutes to critical containment failure, warned the AI. The final approach to the antimatter facility was through a corridor bathed in radiation levels that the monitoring system simply registered as extreme. "Radiation will damage our eyes," Chen told Argent through their comlink. "We'll navigate by touch if necessary." "Lead the way, Ambassador," rumbled the Luparian. "My nose still works." The council chamber was utterly silent now, all eyes fixed on the displays as the Deathworlders entered the antimatter facility itself. The room glowed with eerie blue light, the failing containment fields visible as flickering barriers around the antimatter storage units. "Diagnosis?" asked Chen, moving to the central control console. Argent sniffed the air, his enhanced senses detecting what machinery could not. "Sabotage. Explosive residue near the primary coolant intake." Chen nodded grimly, her fingers flying over the alien controls. "The automated systems are trying to compensate, but they're programmed for gradual failures, not simultaneous ones." "Can you stabilize it?" asked Vexola through the comm. "Not remotely," Chen replied. "The backup protocols need to be initiated manually from 3 separate stations simultaneously." Without further discussion, Chen took one station while Argent used his claws with surprising dexterity on another. The third station remained unattended. "Impossible," muttered Kloop. "The system requires 3 operators." Chen smiled through obvious pain, her skin reddening from radiation exposure. "Director Zarn, your saboteur made a fundamental mistake." "What mistake?" demanded the security director. "They assumed 3 operators meant 3 separate beings," she answered, and to the council's astonishment, used her left hand to operate the third station, while maintaining control of the first with her right. "Primate dexterity," murmured Kloop in wonder. "Independent control of multiple limbs." "Backup protocols engage," announced the station eye. "Containment stabilizing at 37%. "Not enough," growled Argent. "The damage is too severe." Chen's expression turned grim. "We need to reroute the antimatter to the emergency dumps, but that requires overriding safety protocols. The system won't accept remote authorization." "Meaning?" asked Vexala. "Meaning someone has to physically connect to the system and provide continuous biometric authentication while the antimatter is transferred," Chen explained. "The radiation dose would be significant." A hush fell over the council chamber. "I'll do it," said Argent before Chen could volunteer. "My cellular regeneration is faster." "Argent," Chen began to protest. "Pact before self," the Luparian cut her off, using a phrase that the translators struggled with momentarily before rendering as something akin to the many before the few. Without waiting for further argument, Argent approached the central pillar where the manual override was located. He placed his paw on the authentication panel and held it there as the system began the transfer. The biomonitors spiked alarmingly as radiation poured into the Luparian's body. His fur began to fall out in patches, and blood seeped from his eyes and nose. Still, he held position, a low growl of pain the only indication of his suffering. In the council chamber, even Security Director Zarn was silent, mandibles still in what his species recognized as respect. After what seemed an eternity, the AI announced, "Antimatter transfer complete. Containment levels stabilizing at 89% and rising." Chen rushed to Argent as he collapsed, gathering the massive Luparian into her arms with strength that shocked the watching council members. "Medical team to the antimatter facility," Chen ordered through the comm. "Ambassador Argent requires immediate treatment for acute radiation poisoning." "Our medical technology isn't designed for your biology," Kloop pointed out anxiously. "Then it's a good thing we brought our own," Chen replied, withdrawing a small device from her uniform pocket and injecting Argent with it. "Nanite cellular repair suite. It will stabilize him until we can get him back to our ship." As emergency teams finally entered the now-safe facility, the council watched in stunned silence as Chen carried her Luparian counterpart toward the exit, her own body showing signs of severe radiation exposure, yet moving with unwavering determination. 3 days later, a much different scene unfolded in the Grand Council chamber. The emergency had been contained, repairs were underway, and an investigation had identified the saboteur, a representative from a species that opposed Earth's admission to the Confederation. Ambassador Chen stood before the council, her skin still showing signs of radiation burn, but otherwise recovered. Beside her, Argent sat proudly, patches of his fur regrown, but with noticeable silver-white streaks where the radiation had left its mark. High Counselor Vexola's crystalline form glowed with formal ceremonial patterns. "Ambassadors of Earth, the Galactic Confederation has voted unanimously to accept your application for membership." A murmur of approval rippled through the assembly, approval tinged with newfound respect, and yes, still some fear. "Your actions during the crisis demonstrated not just the physical capabilities that make your species unique, but the moral character that makes you worthy allies," continued Vexala. "Where others saw your adaptations as weapons, you proved them to be tools of preservation and protection." Chen bowed slightly. "We are honored by your acceptance, High Counselor. Earth looks forward to a long and productive relationship with the Confederation." Security Director Zarn stepped forward, his carapace gleaming. Ambassador, I owe you an apology. I judged your species based on capabilities rather than intentions. It was an error in judgment. No apology needed, Director, Chen replied with a smile. Caution is a survival trait. So is adaptation, not just physical, but mental. Perhaps the Confederation and Earth can adapt to each other. Science Minister Kloop approached next, his gelatinous form quivering with excitement. The medical data from your encounter with the radiation is fascinating. Your cellular repair mechanisms, the Luparian regenerative capabilities. There are implications for medicine throughout the Confederation. Argent bared his teeth in what the Council now recognized as amusement. We told you Deathworlders have much to offer. As the formal ceremony concluded and representatives from throughout the Confederation came forward to welcome Earth to the Galactic community, Trade Minister Pelvok leaned toward Vexala. Do you think we've made the right decision? He asked quietly. They are still Deathworlders, after all. Vexala's crystalline form shimmered in the equivalent of contemplation. I believe we have. But perhaps we should update our terminology. Oh. Yes, said the High Counselor, watching as Chen and Argent graciously accepted congratulations from beings who had feared them just days before. Not Deathworlders, but Lifeforged. For only in the crucible of such a world could beings with such strength and compassion be created. Across the chamber, Ambassador Chen caught Vexala's gaze and nodded slightly, as if she had somehow heard the High Counselor's words. The human smiled, that disarming gesture that had once seemed so predatory, but now conveyed something else entirely. Hope. The silence that had fallen across the stars at the arrival of Earth's representatives had been broken, and in its place was the beginning of a conversation that would change the galaxy forever.